On December 14th, 2023, Mandy Rose was abruptly released from her WWE contract after the promotion found her sharing adult content from her FanTime account. The firing blew up into a scandal in and of itself. Mandy's risque content cost her a job and the biggest push of her career, but the former 413-day NXT Women's Champion soldiered on as an adult content creator full-time. It was the best career decision of her life. Congratulations to Mandy Sachs for making $1 million in a month. Finished 2022 like a champ. Read a post from the official FanTime account. Though content creators on fan subscription sites like FanTime and OF can't expect to make $1 million every month, it has been proven to be a lucrative venture for women's wrestlers who are now making more from their racy content in a month than they ever did taking bumps for years. It's such a proven business model, Mandy herself has acted as a mentor for women transitioning from wrestling to OF, a move that is changing the power and money dynamics of WWE and turning the business of women's wrestling on its head. Today, we're going to talk about the booming business of subscription-based content and how women's wrestlers are getting better payoffs by working for themselves and cashing in on subscribers. We'll also talk about how subscription sites are changing the face and body of women's wrestling. For all we know, the women's revolution in WWE could be an endangered species if the promotion remains stubborn when it comes to third-party websites. Subscribe in Yoruba. OF generated over $7 billion in gross revenue in 2024, with $5.8 billion paid to the creators. The highest earning OF model is believed to be Sophie Rain, who claimed annual earnings of over $43 million in a year. Former NXT Women's Tag Team Champion Cora Jade was released from her contract this past May. Though she initially returned to the Indies, Jade has since taken a hiatus from pro wrestling after making a good living on OF. Jade was recently misquoted as saying she makes more money from paid content in a month than what wrestlers make in a year. You should probably cite posts from the actual person if you're gonna make a headline, not a fucking roleplay account of me. Cora Jade did not boast about what she made, but she did suggest it was more than she ever made as a wrestler.
Probably the best career decision I've ever made. My grandkids will be rich. So.
Wow.
I'm now able to wrestle. Say if someone called me from a show and wanted me to act, I can do that. I can do OnlyFans. I can do anything I want. I'm not in the thing with WWE is you cannot make any other income. WWE owns you. Everything is through WWE. So now I have these handcuffs off where I can wrestle still and still live my dream, go wherever I want to go, but now make income from X, Y, and Z and do other opportunities X, Y, and Z.
Former WWE superstar Shotzi also bragged about making more money outside of WWE, and it wasn't even an OF flex. After a shot at GCW's Tournament of Survival, Shotzi posted, "Made more money in 2 days than what WWE paid me in a week." The artist formerly known as Mandy Rose collaborated with Cora Jade in spicy photo shoots almost immediately after Cora's release. When Cora Jackson received her release, she followed suit, or rather followed birthday suit, and joined Rose and Jade as wrestlers turned OF models get it how you live. The staggering amount of money that ex-women's wrestlers are making from OF is creating a conversation about wrestler pay, particularly the starting salary of women in NXT, especially in WWE's TKO era, where WWE has made billions upon billions of dollars from live gate revenue, TV deals, and a lucrative deal with Saudi Arabia, the only government in the history of the world to do bad things. Former NXT star Jasmyn recently walked away from WWE after being unable to come to terms on a new deal. Nyx was believed to be making well under $100,000, which is nothing to sneeze at. But considering how underpaid every wrestler is, all while WWE is making more money than ever before, I don't blame Jasmyn Nyx for seeking greener pastures. Nyx already shot down rumors of starting an OF, but in this current climate, that makes her the exception to the rule. In fact, whether or not Nyx starts an OF is besides the point when it comes to the women's wrestling business. With equal pay at the forefront of the sports business conversation, OF has created a market that could indirectly result in women's wrestlers commanding higher salaries. The economics of women's wrestling just changed because if upstart NXT talent can make life-changing money on OF, imagine how much leverage a top women's wrestling star now has. Let's say Rhea Ripley became a free agent. While negotiating with WWE, Ripley could use AEW and OF as bargaining chips. She could probably make more money in either AEW or an OF, which would drive up the price of the the average women's wrestler in WWE. WWE knows that, and that's why they signed her to a lucrative 5-year extension in 2024. More women are getting into the wrestling business on the ground floor and using that national TV exposure to increase their income exponentially through OF. It basically became a business model. Good. Not only are wrestlers underpaid compared to what WWE makes, women are typically underpaid compared to their male counterpart. Now, in the case of the WNBA, you can easily make the argument that they don't draw the ratings and the revenue of their male counterparts in the NBA argument over. In pro wrestling, especially at the top levels, especially considering how immaterial wrestlers are to the bottom line these days, I'm not sure that same argument applies. These days, WWE draws on the strength of its brand name, not its wrestlers. The one exception is obviously John Cena's retirement tour. Having said that, is Seth Rollins really that much bigger of a star than Stephanie Vaquer? Is Roman Reigns really that much bigger of a star than Rhea Ripley? Not only do I not know, but it doesn't matter. And all things equal, a woman who can threaten to go to OF has way more leverage than a man threatening to go to AEW, which isn't an OnlyFans as much as it's an Only Marks. Jordynne Grace is one of the best women's wrestlers in the world. Before finally signing with WWE, Grace had to shut down her OF account, a venture she was doing on the side while working toward her dream of becoming a WWE superstar. Unfortunately, women's wrestlers in WWE can't have their cake and eat it too, no pun intended. In 2020, WWE caused a stir when Vince McMahon issued an edict that wrestlers are not to engage with third-party brands of any kind. Former presidential candidate Andrew Yang called out WWE for attempting to control brand deals among its talent, despite the talent being classified as independent contractors. WWE released a statement about their stance, quote, "Much like Disney and Warner Brothers, WWE creates, promotes, and invests in its intellectual property, i.e. the stage names of performers like The Fiend Bray Wyatt, Roman Reigns, Big E, and Braun Strowman. It is a control and exploitation of these characters that allows WWE to drive revenue, which in turn enables the company to compensate performers at the highest levels in the sports entertainment industry," end quote. To this day, WWE continues to micromanage any third-party deal among its talent. As a result, subscription sites like OF have been rendered an ultimatum, but it's an ultimatum that more and more women are gladly shunning WWE to accept. Mandy Rose, Cora Jade, and Cora Jade are blazing a trail that more women are certain to follow. Given the dangers of pro wrestling for such a low initial pay, one would be foolish to not at least consider OF. It's the great equalizer. At the very least, women's wrestlers should be using OF as a bargaining chip if they're not satisfied with their pay. As this happens at higher levels of women's wrestling, not just developmental, women's wrestler pay will rise. The mere threat of a top girl starting an OF for more money is enough to make a TKO executive's knees buckle. One of NXT's biggest demographics is young males watching by themselves, as opposed to middle-aged men like Dave Meltzer who watches alone with a stopwatch to time the matches like a fucking dork. This will, this will be a new path for many women who are, put it this way, for many women who are attractive and it'll get more common. Wrote Meltzer, they'll learn to wrestle, make it on TV, build a fan base, and, start a OF. The young male demographic has plenty of crossovers with the OF demo. And after creating a connection with that demo through NXT, the transition to OF almost makes too much sense. And as the wrestler turned OF model becomes more of a trend, WWE is going to be faced with a tricky situation. Do they rewrite their contracts to where women cannot start an OF after being released, like a non-compete? Do they buckle and allow women to have an OF while they're in NXT? Or here's a novel concept, does WWE TKO take all that money they're making and start paying women more money so they don't need an OF to feed their families? The threat of OF is very real, especially considering how much money and resources WWE could possibly waste by training OF models that they think are going to be wrestlers. Forget AEW. WWE's biggest competition could come in the form of OF. If enough women's wrestlers make that crossover, who knows? Somebody could start a women's wrestling promotion on there. By then, we could be thrown into an alternate universe where WWE is scouting OF for talent. Funny as that sounds, the salaries for women's wrestlers would skyrocket if that happened. The entire women's wrestling industry is taking note of all the money to be made on paid content sites. It's one of the biggest stories in wrestling that nobody really wants to talk about. Considering all the OF money going to NXT stars, imagine what that bag would look like if one of the top WWE names starts an OF. In discussing discussing AEW's policy when it comes to third-party accounts, Tony Khan answered the question without actually answering it. Typical Tony. Quote, I try to be flexible with the wrestlers and staff utilizing their personal social media. I certainly recognize they are leading their own lives the other 5 days of the week when they're not wrestling. They are representing the company as great wrestlers of AEW, but they are also all independent people with separate lives. I try to give people that peace of mind. End quote. Not that I've been actively looking, but there is little to no evidence of AEW stars with OF accounts. AEW is more adult-oriented with a promoter who lacks authority. So I wouldn't be surprised if AEW stars were allowed to have an OF. This could be a freedom that would make it more appealing for top women stars in WWE and NXT to go to AEW, while at the same time making more money than ever before on a subscription site. Because outside of Mercedes Moné and Toni Storm, the women's division in AEW is far from consistent. Check out this video and subscribe. Should the wrestling business allow women to have an OF? Tell me in the comments!